So now that we've covered all of this and everything you need to know about going solar, we're gonna look at 3 different cases and examples of projects, because we wanna show you how it's designed, what's the investment like, how can you finance it, what are the differences between the financing options, what are the options if you were to select, the different available features per se. What if you have them in the front, what do you have them in the back, what happens if you have batteries or without batteries. So we're going to look at all the different things so you have a better idea on what's the best way to go solar for you based on your needs and expectations. So follow me through these examples as we're showing. We're going to look at case studies. I'm going to give you 3 examples of the typical homes that we see here in South Florida. We're going to talk about a small to decent sized house. We're going to talk about a medium sized house, and then we're going to talk about a big house, more or less. And that's going to range in the values of both the kilowatt system size, that's how we measure the system sizes of solar systems, right? And then also how much energy they're spending in terms of dollars, right? So the first example, by the way, we're going to summarize all of this, and you're going to see in the screen a very neat version of this, right? So number 1 is we have a house here. What's important? This is an 11.5 more or less kilowatt home, right? Then we have a 17.6 kilowatt home, and then we have a 32 kilowatt home. That's just the system size, just so you get an idea of the different sizes and how the finances might vary. All of these examples are loans, okay? You can always look at cash, look at lease, but for the sake of the example, 70% of the people, I would say, will fall under the loan category. That means they don't want to put any money down, they don't want to come out of pocket, and they'll do cash for that. They'll do a loan, I should say. And so we're gonna look at each of these individually. So let's look at the first example, right? This example, it's a house that has an electric bill of $153, okay? When they go solar, the smaller you go on the system size, the less savings you can expect. So you more or less break even between the loan and the electric bill at about, in this particular case, at about $150, $160, right? So the new electric bill or the solar bill, it's $162 versus $153. Not a lot of savings initially, okay? But now he's locking in the rate for the years to come. It's gonna cost him an extra $9 a month to go solar. Why not? If the utility keeps increasing, he's gonna start seeing savings very soon, right, on that. Now, system size, we talked about 11.5. System offset 102. That means he's covering 102% of his current energy consumption. Investment, the investment is $51,000, but guess what? We also talked about a tax credit. So when you apply the tax credit, it becomes 38. So 51 minus 13, which is a tax credit, it's 38. That is the net investment applying the tax credit. If he doesn't transition to solar energy, considering the escalation rate from the utility, this home in 30 years, okay, and that home would be spending $128,000. So we talked about the reasons why you gotta go solar, but this solar is not an emotional decision. It is a rational financial decision. So why pay $128,000 that you're not in control in when you can invest $38,000 and just use the sun to your advantage? This is the first case. So 11.5, 153 was the old bill. The new bill is 162, covering 100% or 102% of the energy consumption, right? Net investment after the tax credit, it's 38. Now, if that person does not have the tax liability, that means they don't pay enough taxes to absorb this $13K in tax credits, then we would suggest to go for a lease option. Why? Because they're gonna end up paying less than they're paying today to the utility. They don't have to worry about ownership, or they don't have to worry about the tax credit because they technically do not own the system. It is a third party or the bank that owns the system, but they're still getting the savings. Now, the caveat to that is that if you have a lease, they typically have an escalation to it. That means it's 2.9%. So even if you were to look at a lease, the lease would be going up every year, 2.9%, right? But the utility, guess what? Goes up 6 to 8% per year. So if you even look at that, you're still saving between 4 to 5% every year. Sorry, did I say that right? I mean 3 to 5% every year just by switching to solar. So there's no real reason why you should not switch to solar. There's always different means and financial vehicles to make the transition. Let's now look at the second case. So as we're looking at the second case, we're looking at a house that has a 17.6 kilowatt system, slightly bigger than the other house. Now, prices and the cost and investment will vary from house to house, not just because of the consumption, but also the constraints that we have physically with the house. The shingle roofs tend to be a little bit lighter on the cost investment versus tile roofs. It will vary also if it's a flat roof, and it will vary also if you have a metal standing or metal roof. So these things do affect, and I just want to show you the spectrum of different things, but they're not really apples to apples. Every case is different, but I'm just showing you examples. So this house B, the second house, we're looking at a bill that has $245. Okay, that's the electric bill that they were having before they went solar. Now, the higher you go, typically the more savings you're gonna have. So they went from paying $245 to $188 a month with a 17.6 kilowatt system, 101%, $59,000 of investment, but then the net investment after the tax credit, it's $44,000 because they have a tax credit of $15,000, okay? Versus staying with the utility would have cost them $211,000 over 30 years. Why do that when you can just essentially invest $44,000, make use of that tax credit, and have free energy for 30 years essentially, or however long the panels last? Remember, they're guaranteed to work and function for 25 years on that. So this is more or less an example of the typical home that you will see today. Now with the utility increases that we've seen, $245, it's pretty much a standard bill. That's not a rare bill today. This is a smaller house nowadays. Okay, so let's go on to the third case. What we're looking here, it's a 32 kW system size. We've done houses anywhere from 6 kW, this is 11, so from like 6 kW all the way to 55 kW on the residential side. So huge spectrum, but this is considered a big system for a house. Now, they were spending $434 a month on average. This is the average monthly bill. They went solar for $368. So there's a delta here, okay? And these are all the savings. Now, this delta is not as huge as it could have been. Why? Because they decided to go for 114% offset. What that means is that we had a discussion and they mentioned, I'm going to get an electric vehicle. I'm adding a pool and a pool heater. So if we were to design that system for 100%, guess what? They will be short because we consider the consumption data for the past 12 months. But if they do not contemplate that additional calculation, they're going to be short. So that's why we go up to 114%. In this case, we did that calculation and they'll be safe having this offset. It was an investment of $117. After the tax credit, it becomes $87 because there's a $30,000 tax credit that's applied to this, all right? And I'm sorry, in this case, it was 26 at that point. It changed from year 21 to 22. And there is a $395,000 number that they will be paying the utility if they had not switched over to solar. So these are different cases, different scenarios. Every case will vary, but the point here is, remember, you don't have an option to go solar. The transition is imminent, inevitable. The utility will make you go solar because they are going solar, and guess what? We all have to pay for that investment unless you transition and you get to trade power with them. So now you're in a partnership with them where you get to net meter and trade power for a fixed cost that you have control over the overall cost of your energy. The only thing that you have to pay him is the interconnection fee on that. So We're gonna go over more details later on, but this is more or less a summary of the typical cases that we see here in South Florida.